What's up, guys? It's Brandon Flash. Today we're here with my Rivian R1T, and we're going to be talking about some of the things I like and some of the things that Rivian really should improve after I've had this truck for 1 month and I've driven over 5,000 miles with it already. As I mentioned, I've had my Rivian R1T for 1 month and I just crossed 5,000 miles, actually while I was filming my efficiency test, which was the previous video to this. So if you haven't, definitely check that out. By the way, if you're new here, welcome. This is my channel covering all sorts of EV related things, testing, news, all sorts of fun stuff. If you haven't already, I encourage you hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. But let me give you a quick tour of the Rivian R1T. I'm going to have a more in-depth video coming pretty soon, including showing some of the modifications I've made, just minor stuff. But let's jump into a quick walkthrough and then we'll go into the things that I really like and the things that I don't like. So as I mentioned, Rivian R1T, they're only making them in 2022s right now. Probably going to actually switch over to 2023 soon. This is in what I consider to be beautiful Rivian blue. We got the 20-inch all-terrain wheels. I have ocean coast interior. Sorry, it's a little bit dirty there. We of course have the power tonneau. We've got the gear tunnel, which is Rivian's kind of famous for. Power tonneau still working, still making the same not great noises that it made on day one, but it's fine. A little damp, just got a car wash, so it's not 100% water sealed, but I'd say for a touchless car wash, that's not bad. Of course, this drops down. You've got the gooseneck hinge, of course. I've got the full-size spare under here, which I did have to use once, so if you haven't already, I made a video about that as well. Pretty normal, you have to press on both sides of that. And let me just show you under the frunk as well. And then we'll hop inside to get out of this wind, and I'll talk about the things that I like and don't like. Of course, front trunk up here, I've got some stuff in it and some dripping water from the car wash. Power open and close. I've got it on pet mode, so let's hop in and I'm going to talk to you about some things that I like and don't like. So as I've been enjoying the Rivian R1T for 1 month on the road trip, driving around town, efficiency tests, all that sorts of fun stuff, I've been taking some notes on things that I really like and things that I think Rivian can improve on. And keep in mind that none of these things are make or break. I absolutely love this truck. I recommend it at pretty much every opportunity I get. If you've seen me on YouTube, Twitter, Reddit, whatever, I couldn't be happier with this truck. I could probably sell it and make $20,000 as a profit, but I'm not. So I don't know what I could say that's stronger as far as how much I like this truck, other than that I'm turning down essentially $20,000 to keep this truck. There's no other vehicle on the market that I want right now. This is basically combining a Tesla, a Range Rover, and a Ford Raptor into one vehicle, and it does all three jobs essentially extremely well. Every day I'm happy to get into it. It does all the things. It has all the capability. It's super comfortable. Love it. So as far as likes go, here are just some key points, but overall, everything's really good about this truck. Comfort, I would say, is the #1 thing. Seats are fantastic. I love the cooled seats in particular. I'm someone that tends to get hot in a car, so having the cooled seat really makes it so I don't have to keep the temperature at a lower temperature than I need to, essentially. The capacitive steering wheel for Driver Plus is awesome. Very few nags as long as you actually have your hand on the wheel, which, I mean, you can just have it on there lightly. You don't have to have torque sensing or anything like that, which is awesome. And a kind of a more overarching theme is the attention to detail on this truck. If you've watched any of the walkthroughs from other people or even my own videos, you can see the little things. It's the flashlight, it's the gear tunnel, it's the air compressor, the outlets, just how well everything about this truck works essentially is just so clearly well thought out and well executed. So I really appreciate that. Another thing, the front trunk is actually a lot more useful than I've ever found a front trunk to be. When I had my Tesla Model S, I hardly ever used my front trunk. I basically just had things in there that lived up there and I would use occasionally. Maybe it's a bit of this being a truck and not having a traditional trunk as well, but I do have the gear tunnel too. But having a power open and close front trunk is just so useful. You can put whatever you want up there. You can just press a button, that's another point. There's an actual physical button on the truck to open and close the front trunk. So much more useful than having to open an app or use a key fob or whatever, but you can actually do it on both of those as well. But I love just having the button. It makes it so much easier, especially if you are traveling with other people that don't have the app or key fob or anything like that. They can just walk up there, press the button, open it, stuff's right there. It's the simple things. And now let's get into some of the things that I would call dislikes, some more major than others, but generally just room for improvement, I would say, from Rivian. These are in no particular order, not really grouped together a whole lot, so hopefully it's not too messy of a video here. So there are no driver profiles unless you add an additional driver. So what I mean by that is you can have driver profiles. It'll say your name on the screen, and then it saves some of your preferences, seating position, all that kind of fun stuff. But you can't actually add additional profiles unless you also send an invitation to someone else to drive the vehicle. So like in my previous Tesla, I would have multiple driver profiles. I would have one that was maybe a little bit more relaxed. I would have one for when I'm charging with the steering wheel all the way in, all the way up, seat maybe a little bit more relaxed. So if I want to use my laptop while I'm charging or whatever, just the little things. Not everyone wants to have the exact same driver profile every single time they drive. So I don't think that driver profile should be linked to having additional drivers on the vehicle. I think that's pretty simple. You cannot use the bed camera instead of the bumper camera when you're in reverse. So behind me, as part of this glass spoiler assembly, there's actually a camera, and that's actually part of gear guard, which works really well. I'll have a little bit more on that in a little bit. You can't actually view that camera when you're in reverse or viewing the surround camera, which is a little bit unfortunate because if you have the tailgate open, you actually can't really see much of anything on the reverse camera. So it'd be nice to just be able to tap a button and switch between it, or automatically switch to the bed camera if the tailgate's open, because the vehicle does know when the tailgate's open. I think that should be a pretty simple thing for Rivian to implement. Another thing, Rivian has to program keys. So if you have another key card or another key fob or whatever, you actually can't program it yourself. Rivian has to do that, which I think is a little bit silly. I think you should be able to do it similar to on a Tesla, where as long as you have an existing key, you can program additional keys yourself. Not a whole lot more to say to that. Additionally, you can only have 2 phone keys that are supported with the vehicle. So for example, I have my main phone as a phone key. I have Kaylee's profile. She has her phone set as a phone key. And then I have a spare phone here that I just use for video and things, and I can't add this as a phone key, which is a little bit silly. The top speed, I think, is a bit too low. So the top speed on this vehicle is 112 miles per hour. If you've been watching Rivian content for a little while, you saw that it was actually higher initially, but in a recent software update, they improved the calibration of the speedometer. So as a result, the top speed went down. Effectively, it was actually the exact same, but it's just a lower displayed number. The tires, even the all-terrain tires, are actually H speed rated, which is 130 miles an hour. So I think that should probably be the top speed rather than 112 miles per hour. The navigation uses something called Mapbox, and it's okay, I would say, but in my opinion, Rivian should be using Google Maps like everyone else because it just works better. The navigation itself is generally fine, but the location point of interest database is just not that good in my experience. Sometimes the addresses are outdated or whatever, and it actually uses Yelp for reviews and ratings, which I don't know about you, but I don't think I know anyone under the age of 40 that actually uses Yelp for legitimate reviews. Almost everyone I know that posts on Yelp, it's only when they're upset. I would much rather see Google reviews results. And as a result of that, I generally use Google Maps on my phone to find wherever I want to go or whatever. And then I'll just punch in the address or search the name and make sure that the addresses line up if I'm navigating on the truck itself. In addition, with the navigation, it will only show you an arrival estimate in miles rather than also in percentage, or in percentage if that's your choice. A recent software update allowed it to display both miles and percentage on the instrument cluster, which is fantastic, but it doesn't let you view the arrival estimate in percentage. So just a little bit of a mismatch there, probably between different development teams, who knows, but something that could be improved. A little bit of a silly one, you can't adjust the drive mode settings if you're in Driver Plus. So Driver Plus is Rivian's autopilot-ish software, essentially. And if I'm in Driver Plus, I can't actually adjust anything with the drive mode settings. You can't adjust the suspension height or anything like that, which I think is a little bit of a miss. If I'm driving down the interstate on Driver Plus and I'm on low suspension for the best aerodynamics, but suddenly I get to a little bit rougher patch of asphalt, I might want to raise it up to standard for a little bit more comfortable ride, but I can't do that unless I take it off Driver Plus and then change the setting, which is actually less safe. So a little bit silly there. I think that should be changed. Another thing with that, you actually can't change your suspension height if you're over 85 miles per hour, and then you can't change again, or like it doesn't unlock the ability to change settings until you're below 80 miles per hour. So a little bit silly there as well. The power vents, I just think they're a bit unnecessary. So if you're not familiar, all the vents on the dash of the vehicle are actually power. So I think manual vents would have been just fine and probably better, just my opinion. Just more things to break and less adjustability. So I don't know, silly. The mobile connector, so the portable EVSE that comes with the vehicle, is only up to 32 amps. Which on a big vehicle like this is not enough in my opinion. It should be 40 amps. I actually just made a video about a different EVSE from a company called J+. It's the Booster 2, so check that out if you're interested in a 40 amp EVSE for your Rivian. That way you can get the maximum power that's allowed by NEC on a NEMA 1450. So I think any portable EVSE that comes with a NEMA 1450 should allow 40 amps. Especially on a vehicle with such a large battery. You really need that additional power whenever you can get it. You can only leave the outlets, so the onboard inverter, on for 24 hours at a time. And interestingly enough, I've actually noticed that if you leave the inverter on overnight, so say I get home at 7 p.m., don't leave till 9 p.m. in the morning, I'll typically lose about 4% battery in that time, which is actually really high. And I've noticed that underneath the passenger seat, it seems like almost a space heater, so the inverter's underneath there. A little bit concerning, but it seems fine. Comment down below if you've experienced this as well. If you're a Rivian owner, I'm really curious if there's something wrong with my truck or if this is just normal. There is no dash cam on this vehicle. It has, I think, 11 cameras. I could be wrong on that number, but anyway, a lot of cameras on the outside of the vehicle. It has a function called Gear Guard, which is like Tesla's Sentry mode. It's just recording when you're parked and it detects motion. But there's nothing while you're driving, so there's no dash cam. So I've actually been seeing people install aftermarket dash cams on their Rivian, which just seems a little silly. Definitely should be something that's added as soon as possible by Rivian, because if I get in an accident, I'd like to have a camera recording, and there's a bunch of them built into the truck already, so why not use them? When you're using navigation, adding on to the previous navigation comments, you can't actually tap on a charger if you have a route set to view information about it. So you have to cancel navigation and then tap on the little lightning bolt, and then you can see the charger information. So I think you should be able to tap on chargers even along a route to see more information about that charger in case you might want to make a detour, whatever the case may be. I think that's very reasonable. As I showed in the front trunk, I didn't call it out specifically, but there's not really a way to secure cargo up there. So I did a little bit of a creative solution with a magnet hook onto the spots on the tub itself. So that works, but I think there should be maybe some hooks or something that you can secure things in that front trunk. There are only 2 trips that the vehicle allows. So like trip computer, essentially. It will allow a trip A and a trip B. But what I'd like to see Rivian add is a since last charge and a this drive, essentially trip. So that way you can see how many miles you've driven since your last charge. And you can also see this day, essentially, depending on how they implement it. Some vehicles, it's literally just this drive and essentially for this key cycle, or some vehicles, it's since the morning, essentially. It resets if it's inactive for like 2 hours or more. So either way would work for me. I would just like to see more trips, and especially a since last charge. I think that's really useful on road trips to gauge how you're tracking on that road trip and your efficiency and your range and all that fun stuff. The efficiency on the instrument cluster will actually only let you see the past 15 minutes, not miles, minutes, which if you're coming from a Tesla or you're familiar with Tesla's energy screen, you would know that you can set it to 5, 15, or 30 miles as your look back period for your efficiency. And I think Rivian should do that as well. I think that's a lot more useful. I don't think it's useful at all to have it in minutes, especially when you're measuring miles per kilowatt hour. It should be in miles. Not sure why they chose minutes there. Just a little bit silly. Also on the instrument cluster, you can only have one widget of sorts showing on the instrument cluster, so you can only cycle between navigation, tire pressure, and your efficiency graph. But the whole right side of the dash, it's just showing your power gauge and then the gear that you're in. So I think they should make it so that the efficiency graph is part of the power meter, similar to Tesla. This is just an example of copy what they've done well. So like on older Model S and X, you have the graph, and then you also have the power meter in one display. So I think that works really well. I would like to have the efficiency shown at all times if possible. And I'd also like it that I could keep things up at different times. So maybe have it default to tire pressure, and then when I have navigation set, then show navigation on the instrument cluster. Little things. I would really like a button in the iPhone app, that way on the share screen. So if I'm in Google Maps or whatever, that I could share it to the car. Tesla does this. So you basically just go into the share screen, and then Tesla is one of the app options in that screen. I think that is awesome. That way you can just send the address to your car if you're looking it up on your phone, whatever the case may be. I would really like a way to manually precondition the battery for fast charging. So Rivian's navigation as far as EV charging station listings is quite good, but I would say it's not perfect and won't be for quite a while, especially with new stations popping up every day. They won't necessarily be in here right away. So I would like to see it that I could hit a manual precondition, say 20 minutes before I get to the charger, and then it just starts preconditioning the battery. Lucid has this, Hummer has this, and I think it's pretty smart. I think every EV should have this, especially if you live in a cold climate. It's very useful. There is no way to select the apps for the bottom bar of the screen. So the first four are static. So you have navigation, music, drive mode, vehicle, and then it will show your most recent app. So right now I have it on cameras. And then there's also energy, gear guard, camping, phone, settings, and owner's guide. And then whichever one of those you used most recently, that will show in the 5th position. I'd like to be able to see more on that screen personally, but I'd at least like to be able to reorder those as needed, because I don't really need the music icon showing there most of the time, because I usually have the widget showing anyway. So let me just pick those. I would like a pop-up when changing time zones. Some vehicles do this. I would say it's not super common, but I think it's useful on road trips. Just a like vehicle time change to X time zone. That way you know that the clock has changed, so you can kind of have a little bit of peace of mind that the time you're looking at is accurate for where you are, and to just make you realize that you cross in that time zone. I know when I'm driving, I don't always catch those change of time zone signs on the interstate. And I would like a way to show when the phone key is connected to the vehicle. That way I could see which phone is connected. So for example, when I got my new iPhone, I didn't know which key was my current phone, because it also didn't show the name of the phone as the phone key name in the app. So I'd like to be able to just bring the phone to the car and see like if it's bold or like connected or something, either in the app or in the car. Either way works for me, no big deal either way. And that also allow more than 2 phone keys. I think that would be useful as well. Rivian has a really cool feature called Show and Tell, which if you watch my live streams, you know what that is. It basically just leaves the screens and the lights on. It's basically like YouTuber mode, so that you can take photos, let people check it out without having the screens time out or anything like that. But I would like a step further. I would like a way to have show and tell mode on, but also lock out the ability to put it in drive, because there's a chance I might be in the vehicle, or I might have left the key in the vehicle or something like that. And if I'm showing it to kids or something, I'd rather not have them be able to shift it into drive. I'd rather them just be able to play on the screens. You can't really damage anything by playing on the screens, but I don't want a kid or something to get hurt, or just if I'm in an area that I might not know the people that I'm showing it to, I'd rather not have them be able to hop in and drive away. So I think that's reasonable. Maybe a PIN or something that you have to do, or like re-authenticate on the app or key, or I don't know. Come up with something creative. I'm sure Rivian can do it. They have plenty of smart people. Gear guard always comes up when you return to the vehicle if there was activity. So I don't need that coming up on my screen every single time. Maybe show me if there was significant amount of activities or something, but I'd really like it to default to just the map every time I get in. Maybe a little window notification or something saying that there was gear guard activity, or however many videos were recorded, something like that. I think that should be done a little bit better. And you can't name the vehicle, so we're getting into a little bit of nitpicky territory here. I'd like to be able to just have a name to the vehicle. I've heard a few cases of people having more than one Rivian, especially if they have an R1T and an R1S, and I think it's reasonable. Kind of cool. Personalize it a little bit. Just have a name on the vehicle, show it in the app, whatever the case may be. The camp speaker is actually pretty good. Sounds nice. Lantern could be a lot brighter. But as far as the placement in the vehicle, I think it would be a lot better if they had put it on the back side of the console and come out towards the back seat, rather than have it on the front side of the console, essentially coming out onto the cargo area, because I usually have like a jacket, just some little stuff in that cargo area, and oftentimes that will tie up and make it harder to remove the camp speaker, especially if I have a drink in the cup holder or whatever. I just think it would have been better on the back side of the console, so maybe over time Rivian will change that. That obviously can't be changed with the software update. And let's talk about the mobile app here for a moment. So just some things I'd like to see. I would really like to be able to see door status, so whether they're open or closed, same with like front trunk, tailgate, whatever. I would like to see the location in the app rather than having to click a view location, then open it in Apple Maps, Google Maps, whatever. That could be a secondary, but I think they should have an embedded map that shows the location of the vehicle, especially if it's moving. That way you could kind of track it, maybe see the speed, whatever. And then kind of basic things, I think. You can't change the charge limit in the app, so how far it will charge up. Also, you can only change the charge limit between 70, 85, and 100%. I'd really like to see at least every 10% increments. Or more ideally, I'd like to see just, you could set it anything from 50 to 100%. You should be able to set it lower than 70% in my opinion, but 70% is also fine. So not complaining too much there. But you can't adjust the charge limit, and you can't stop charging from the mobile app, which I think would be really useful, especially if you have like a detached garage or whatever, or you're staying at a hotel. Sometimes I'll set the charge limit to 85, but then maybe I'm at a hotel charging overnight, and the moment I wake up, as I'm getting ready and everything, I might want to just set the charge limit to 100%, get some power flowing into the battery, heat it up, maybe get it up to 90% by the time I actually leave. And I should be able to do that from the app. I think that's a pretty basic function. Getting into a little bit less basic function, I would really like to be able to view live cameras from the cameras, kind of tying into gear guard from the mobile app. I think that would be really cool. And that, I think, kind of wraps it up here as far as things that I like, things that I don't like about the vehicle. I'd really like to hear, are there any things that I missed? Do you guys agree with everything that I'm saying? Am I being overly picky? I think it's worth noting that I'm being kind of overly picky, because I think Rivian has such a fantastic product that they have the room to improve it with minor software things. Unlike my Volkswagen ID4, that the vehicle is really good, the software needed improvement, but Volkswagen did absolutely nothing about it. Rivian has shown so far since they've released these vehicles that they're really listening to customer feedback. They're improving very quickly. They're rolling out updates frequently. They seem to be at about a 1 month cadence with a long list of improvements, which I'm totally fine with. That makes my job as someone covering a Rivian a little bit easier. I'm not having to make videos every week or so. I'd rather have it every month and then just be able to test things over the course of that month. Works for me. But they're really making a ton of meaningful changes. When I first experienced the Rivian infotainment system over a year ago in California, it was really laggy and I was actually kind of disappointed with it. But now that I have my own, it's actually really fast and it's a huge improvement from where it was. But they've even improved the charging curve, they've improved ride comfort, and they're just really listening, which I really appreciate, and really give a lot of thanks to Rivian, a lot of kudos to those engineers that are making those changes and the leadership that's allowing them to listen to that customer feedback really directly and improve the product over time. That's the whole function of over-the-air updates. But anyway, thank you guys for watching. If you haven't already, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and I'll see you on the next one.